This week on Word from Jerusalem.
Welcome to Word from Jerusalem, and welcome to the beautiful coast of Israel. Now, Israel has adopted a special term to describe Jews returning to the land. They call it Aliyah, which in Hebrew means to go up. It comes from Bible times when every Jewish family had to appear in Jerusalem each year at the three great pilgrimage feasts. And no matter which direction you came from, you always have to go up to Jerusalem. Anyone who's driven this Highway 1 here between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem knows that it's an uphill journey. But it's given the Jewish return a special spiritual significance. To call it Aliyah, many Jews believe that in returning to the land, they're also returning to God. The Aliyah of our day shows that God is sovereign over the nations, that no matter how much they resist, no matter the quotas and the blockades, no matter how much they try and hinder and stop the Jewish return, God is sovereign over the nations and is bringing it to pass. So the prophet Jeremiah says in chapter 31, "Hear the word of the Lord, O nations, and declare it in the isles afar off. He who scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd does his flock." And I believe it is the duty of every Christian to find out what God is doing in their generation and to get involved in it. And we can say with great confidence, unmistakably, that it's the hand of God bringing the Jews back to the land today. We need to be involved in the great Aliyah of our time. We're very pleased to have on our show today Eliezer Sandberg, a former member of the Knesset and cabinet minister, who today is the world chairman of Keren HaYesod. Good to have you.
Hi, hello.
Now, Keren HaYesod, part of the, in tandem with the Jewish Agency, a very important organization in connecting Jews around the world with Israel. One of the things that you're very involved in is Aliyah, the return of the Jews to the nation of Israel. And first of all, Eliezer, give us a little of the history of the Jewish return to the land from, say, most scholars say it starts in the 1880s.
It's true that in the late 80s of the 19th century, when Theodor Herzl started the initiative, the Zionist initiative, that means the Jews should return to their homeland. He established the World Zionist Organization. He made a big congress in Basel, Switzerland, where Jews from different countries in Europe gathered together, East Europe and West Europe, to discuss what needs to be done in order to return the Jewish people back to their homeland and gain independence. The land of Israel was then occupied by the Turkish Empire.
Yes.
There were different directions what to do and how to do, but it was very clear that you can achieve this target by physically having more Jews living in Israel, and I hope at the end of the day all Jews living in Israel. Okay. Part of the concept of Zionism was not to stay only in the cities, not to have Jews only make Aliyah, immigrate to Israel and live in cities, but also go and live in the rural areas, in the different areas.
To build the whole land.
To rebuild the land. And honestly, you have to understand, in those days, and you have to remember, in those days it was a land of swamps. It was a land with malaria. The roads were not developed. There was no electricity here, and the cheapest areas, the land to be bought was, of course, the land that was away from the major cities. But that was also the place where you can do agriculture. This is the place where you can build a new village, etc., and be protected more. In 1920, the World Zionist Organization, the Zionist Congress, understood that it's not enough to redeem the land. We need to support the pioneers, the people who made Aliyah and immigrate to Israel, with the financing or the financial support that is needed to begin.
Yes.
So Keren HaYesod was created, the founder of the foundation. The idea was that we will collect funds and to give it to support the pioneers, so they can buy the first tractor, they can buy the first cow, they can build their houses. And through the years, more than 400 or even more settlements in different places along Israel were created by the funds of Keren HaYesod. Kibbutzim, Moshavim, yes. Even the city of Eilat was funded by the funds that Keren HaYesod raised. So aside to the efforts to bring the Jews to Israel, we made a significant effort before the state was created and after to make sure that those who arrived will stay. Mm-hmm. After the state was declared and become independent, the state of Israel, it become much easier. You don't need to fight the British government anymore in order to fulfill what God promised us, that we will return to Israel.
Hallelujah.
Suddenly the doors were open, the gates were open. But still, you need to bring the people, and it's an operation. Mm-hmm. Some cases, it was very difficult because the local governments did not allow Jews to live. Mm-hmm. In some other cases, it was technical issues. We were there to sponsor every Aliyah operation from every country you can imagine. So if you look into it from historical perspective, and people sometimes tell me, what Keren HaYesod does in one sentence? I always say, we fulfill the biblical prophecy. God promised to bring the Jews, the chosen people, back to their homeland. It took 2,000 years of prayers, but it happens in our times. God said that they will be coming from all four corners of the world. Here they are, Jews from India, from China, from Ethiopia of the south, from Canada, America, Latin America of the west, and Europe, which is the north, to Israel.
And when it comes to this notion of becoming Israeli, wanting to make something of yourself here, there have been push factors, threats against the Jews, anti-Semitism, the threat of assimilation. Herzl talked about those two threats, which sort of push Jews out of their countries to here. But there's also, Israel's developed now, and there's pull factors. There's good jobs here. There's a thriving economy. Can you speak to that about the current situation?
Well, I think that the thing that characterizes more the situation is the fact that it changes all the time. There are Jews under threat in places a few years ago you would not imagine they would be, and I'm not going to speak about any country. On the other hand, there is a growing wave of anti-Semitism in Europe that we thought is over after the Holocaust. On the third hand, there are people who look back to the roots and say, even though I was not maybe raised according to the Jewish tradition, I would like to seek my roots and come here. And there are others. So every time there is a new situation, a new different situation. But there's one thing I can tell you, then wherever and whenever there are Jews at risk, we will make sure that these people will come back to their homeland immediately. We are there to help them. But it is true that if you want to extract to Israel those who come from, let's say, well-off countries that are developed and successful, economically successful, then you have to introduce the newcomers with the possibilities to make proper living here. This is why I explain all the time that the donation that are given needs to also to take this element into consideration. Because if I support the education, the good education of the next generation of comers or immigrants to Israel, then I'm able to make them important part of the growing Israeli economy and society. And that will extract more people to move to Israel for reasons that are not the reasons that you mentioned, but also because, I feel proud to be in my homeland and also to be successful here. The other element that we look into is the issue of those Israelis who left and moved to live in other countries. As I said, we call it yerida, going down the mountain.
Instead of aliyah, you go
the
down.
opposite. Not instead, the opposite. Aliyah is coming to Israel, yes. Coming up. Yerida is when you go down. And I believe that we should not lose hope. We should bring these people back, and sometimes we reach out for their children or grandchildren who are already in another environment, encouraging them to come back to Israel.
And it seems to me that's going to be a big day for Karen Hayuso, the Jewish Agency, the nation, when more than half the Jews are living here. And is this a vision that you have right now to cross that threshold?
It's not a vision. I believe it's a future reality. I mean, the vision is to bring all Jews here, and the vision was to begin the process. Okay, I think, I always say that for thousands of years, over hundreds of years, my great-grandparents and all the generations before, they kept on praying, and they never stopped believing that there will come a day when the promise of God, as it is expressed in the prophecies of the prophets of the Bible, will fulfill. Jews will return to their home.
It's a great hope. Yes.
That was a great hope and wish and desire. Today, it's reality.
Yes.
They come back. So if I see that so many arrived already, there is no doubt that the rest will follow. Maybe it will take a few years more, maybe it will take a few years less, but we are living in the best times. The fulfillment of the biblical prophecy happens in our times. Generations could only pray and wish and hope. We can do something about it. We can take it and make it happen. That's the difference. So I feel privileged to live in these times, and I feel privileged to sit in my position as the world chairman of the organization who funds the return of the Jewish people back to their homeland. And for me, there is no doubt. The numbers will turn. Most of the Jews, very soon, I hope, will be living back in their homeland, and the rest will follow.
I want to be there at Ben Gurion Airport to greet that Jew who puts us over the threshold of more than 50% Eliezer. We want to thank you for your time here on Word from Jerusalem.
Thank you.